Okay, so here is the next part of the notes, and this can continue right after the converse from the vocabulary. Notice I've highlighted all of these. It's because they are extremely important, and you're going to need to know and kind of memorize, I guess, in a way, the process. Otherwise, you're going to have to keep looking back at your notes every single time, and that will take longer for you to do the problems. All right, so to solve an equation using Pythagorean theorem, the first step is to draw a picture if one isn't already provided for you. This is really important, especially for you guys that are visual learners. I'm a visual learner. I need to see things to really put it into perspective. So a picture is really important. Eventually you get to the point where you may not need a picture. One little side thing that I would like to say about the first one, drawing a picture. It doesn't matter if you draw me a map to get to your house if I can't read it. If your map is really sloppy and I cannot read it and I can't understand it, it doesn't really do me any good, does it? So when you're drawing your pictures of your right triangles, it's really important that you make sure that they are neat, crisp, and clean. So one way to do this is a straight edge. If you have your ID with you, you can go ahead and use your ID as a straight edge. If you have a ruler or a protractor at home, that would work. A lot of times I just use a package of sticky notes. Like you could use a book corner, anything that has a nice straight edge to it. Now, I wouldn't use my calculator, for instance, because it's got curved edges. It's not going to work very well. I wouldn't use like my phone case. Like that's not going to be a really good plan. But anything that has a nice edge to it, so that makes a nice straight line. So for instance, I could even use this pink eraser. I would just use this to draw one side, draw the second side, and draw the third side. Okay, so number 2 is to identify and label the legs and the hypotenuse. Now remember again, the legs are interchangeable. There is no like this one has to be A and this one has to be B. The only one that is solid and you cannot change is that hypotenuse. So I always tell my students, identify the hypotenuse first. Now one way that you can do this is the hypotenuse is the slanted and longest side, but also when you have a right triangle, okay, your 90-degree angle, all right, your hypotenuse is going to be the side that's adjacent to that. And what I mean by adjacent is directly across from. So if you're looking at that right angle, if you were to draw an arrow, that signifies, because that arrow is going to go right through your hypotenuse. Okay, so that's going to tell you, if you're not sure, find that 90-degree corner and then draw an arrow, and that'll tell you exactly which side is your hypotenuse. It's a great help. Okay, so you're going to identify and label the legs and the hypotenuse. You're going to substitute the known values into the Pythagorean theorem. So let's say they give you a leg and your hypotenuse. Then you would put those into the formula and find the length of the missing side. Or let's say they give you both legs. You would plug those into the formula and find the length of the hypotenuse, which would be your missing side. You're going to square the two known values. And then if a leg is unknown, you're going to isolate that variable part. We're going to go over each of these steps as we do some examples. And then you're going to take a square root to find the value of the remaining variable and round your answer when necessary. We're also going to go over that as well. So if you're not finished, go ahead and pause. I would not recommend keep listening to me if you are not yet done writing this. It's not going to help you because you're not going to hear it really and you're going to be confused. But if you're ready, we're going to go ahead and we are going to do our first example. Okay. So it says example 1, and you're still writing everything in this video needs to be written down. So example 1, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to draw a picture. So mine is provided, yours is not, so you're going to want to get that straight edge, whatever you can find to use as a straight edge. You know, I'm just even looking around my house, and you know, I could even use this magazine right here. We got like a pool magazine. You could use this magazine as your straight edge to draw each of your sides of this triangle. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to draw this triangle. Okay, and they've already determined the hypotenuse for you and the legs. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to label these. I'm going to get my pen here. So again, it does not matter which one you're choosing as A and which one you are choosing as B. So I just kind of get in the habit. I always make this side A, and I always make the other side B, and then your hypotenuse is going to be C. So remember, I told you you're going to get that formula and you're going to know it really well, okay? So you drew your picture, you drew this triangle, and then you identified and labeled the legs and the hypotenuse. So we identified our legs and we identified our hypotenuse, and I put my A, B, and C there. And now we're going to substitute the values that we know into our formula, that A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So what they mean by that is they're telling us that leg A is 10 meters and leg B is 13 meters. Now I want you to notice something. They are giving you a label. This means meters, this M. So you could have meters, centimeters, inches, kilometers, miles, millimeters, okay? You have to include your label. That's part of your answer, and you'll get half off if you don't, because during standardized testing, you need to have that label in there. So we want to get that in your head to put it in there. So it says substitute the known values into that Pythagorean theorem formula. So we have our formula written down, and you're going to want to write all this as you see it. Okay, I'm going to flip this so that doesn't keep confusing people. So we're going to substitute those known values. So they give us the 10 and the 13, and then it says to square the known values. So 10 squared plus 13 squared equals C squared. So leg A, 10, and we're going to square it, plus leg B, 13, and we're going to square it, equals C squared. So obviously we're trying to find our hypotenuse. Okay, then it says we're going to skip 5 because we don't need to do that one. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to actually square these. This is not 10 times 2, and this is not 13 times 2. This is 10 times 10, and this is 13 times 13. So you can go ahead and look up a calendar on Google. Just type in, online calendar under Google, and one will pop up. It'll have a square root symbol, or if you've got your phone has a calculator, if you have a phone, also if you have a calculator at home, you are looking for this button. I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at it from here. Oh, sorry. The one that has the X with a little squared sign right here by my finger. I'm pointing to it. If you have a calculator like mine, it's located right across from the 7. Okay. Now the other thing too is you don't have to have that. It makes it a little bit faster. You could also just type in 10 times 10 into your calculator, and you could type in 13 times 13. You get the same answer. So we're going to do 10 squared. So I'm going to do 10, and I'm going to hit that X squared key right here. And it's going to give me 100, okay? And then I'm going to clear it out, and I'm going to do 13 and hit that X squared key, and it's going to give me 169. Now what I do not want you to do is this. I don't want you to do 10 squared plus 13 squared like this. Why don't I want you to do that? Because you're going to skip the important step of showing me that you know how to square the numbers, okay? I need to see that you can just do 10 squared and that you can just do 13 squared. So 10 squared we said was 100. and 13 squared we said was 169. So this would be the next thing I need to see when you're showing your work on your problems. Then you would add those two together and you would get 269 equals c squared. That is not the hypotenuse. That is the hypotenuse squared. So the way we find what c equals, just c, is number 6 up here. Take a square root to find the value of c. How do we do that? Okay, so now there is right above on my calculator where it says x squared. If you look right above it, there is a little yellow square root sign. It's right here where my finger is pointing. How do I get to it? Well, that's why you have this little yellow key up here that's a second key. So you'd hit second, and then you'd hit the x squared. And look at that, it pops up. Now, do not hit the one that is up here. Notice how it has this one. Do not hit that one. Your answers will be all wrong. You'll be so frustrated. You want to hit this one. And again, you get to it by pushing, if you have this calculator, second, and then the x squared key right here. It'll bring it up. And then you'd type in 269, and then you'd hit the enter key. And it's going to tell you the answer is this decimal, and we're just going to approximate it, and we're going to say it's 16.4. Okay. Now, if you're using Google Calculator, I cannot promise you yours is going to be the same. I'm going to pull it up in my phone. And give me 1 second here. Okay, so I'm guessing it'll look very similar. All right, now you're gonna say, I don't have any of these buttons right here. Okay, if you push this fx, this right here above the equal sign is your square root. Okay, and then this right here is your button that you can square something. So you would push this button above the equal sign, and you would type, and then you'd have to go back to 1, 2, 3 and type in your 269 and equals, and it's going to give you the same answer my calculator did. Okay? All right. So we say that the square root is 16.4, and then look at something. I'm going to zoom in. I'm not going to zoom in. I wanted to. Notice that this is two wavy lines. They're not the same as all these, because these all mean equal, which means that it equals that. We rounded this answer, so that means you want to put the two wavy lines, and that means approximately, not exact. So 16.4 is approximately the length of side C, or our hypotenuse. So our missing side is approximately 16.4 meters. So when you're doing your work, you will say 16.4 meters is approximately C. You don't need to write what's in this box. You can just leave it as that. All right. So again, if you're not set, pause the video, and then we will get back to, you can come back to it when you're ready. We're going to move into another example. Now, this example, okay, I want you to notice something. First off, make sure you're writing out the whole thing. Make sure you're drawing your picture with your straight edge. But I want you to notice something. So it's not going to say hypotenuse every single time. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just remove that all together here, because I don't want people to get used to that being there, because it's not going to be there when you do your work. When you have your assignments, it's not going to say leg and hypotenuse. You're going to have to know. Okay. Oop. There we go. All right. So you'll notice that they give us the length of one leg, but not the other leg. and then they give us the length of the hypotenuse. So remember, this little square, and it's not always going to be there, this little square is going to tell you that's the right angle corner, and so directly adjacent from that is the hypotenuse side, and hypotenuse is side C. So this is side C, and you can choose which one is A or B, it doesn't matter. I always just put the one that's on the side as A, and the one that's toward the bottom is B. It's just what I always do. I don't care which way you do it for A and B. I probably should have looked to see how they did it for A. Okay, they did it the same as I did. So, once you have this all drawn out, notice we've got our values. So we've drawn the picture, and now we've identified each side, and then we have the labels. Now we're dealing with centimeters. We've got 20 centimeters for our hypotenuse and 12 centimeters for our one leg. So we do this a little bit different, okay? And this is where that step number 5 comes in. So we have done step 1 and step 2. Now we're going to do step 3. So when we fill in this formula, you are not going to put 20 squared plus 12 squared, because 20 is C. That's going to go at the end. So it's going to look like this. Okay, now this would look exactly the same if we were finding, say, leg B. Okay, it would be set up exactly the same. So whether you're finding a leg, it doesn't matter. It's going to be set up the exact same way. So we're trying to find the length of side A. We know side B, and we know side C. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to square them. So that 12 and that 20, we're going to square them. So again, you could use a calculator, or you could go ahead and you could just do 12 times 12 and 20 times 20. So when I do 12 times 12, oops, sorry, I'm trying not to get the glare of the light, we get 144. When I do 20 times 20, or 20 squared, I get 400. So I'm going to fill in those values next, and I'm going to have A squared equals 144, or excuse me, A squared plus 144 equals 400. So now we go to that step 5. And that step 5 up here is if a leg is unknown, which in this case it is, where leg A is unknown. Then we're going to isolate that part, okay? So what that means is that we have to get, if we're looking for A squared, we need to get that by itself. So we do that by moving what we have to the other side. So remember from solving basic equations or one-step equations in 7th grade, if this is plus 144, to get it to the other side, we need to subtract 144 from both sides of our equation. So we subtract 144 from both sides of our equation, and that is going to cancel out the 144 on this side, and it's going to leave us with the A squared equals, and then 400 minus 144 is 256. So again, this is A squared. We're not done. We need to find just A. And in order to find just A, we need to find the square root. So we're going to use that square root. So again, if you have this calculator, you would push second and then the x squared key, and to get that square root symbol, and our number is 256, and then you'd push equals. And when we do that, we get just a plain old 16. It comes out nice and even. So our missing side is A equals 16. If we're not getting a decimal, then you can use the equal sign. And it's not just 16. You have to remember your label. So this is 16 centimeters. All right, so you would do the same exact thing if you were finding side B instead of side A. Same exact process is what's in example 2. So if you have both legs, but you need to find the hypotenuse, you're going to want to refer to example 1. If you have the hypotenuse and either one of the legs, then you're going to refer to example 2. So for tomorrow, you guys are going to have some practice problems that you are going to work on. And then on Thursday will be your assignment, like that you do, 100% of the assignment. Tomorrow's just going to be a couple of practice problems, okay? And we will work on those together a bit, okay? So make sure you have all of these notes down. Make sure you wrote everything from the beginning to end of this video. Take pictures from the screenshots, and then go ahead and submit those to Canvas. I still have some of you not submitting things correctly into Canvas. So for instance, if I was taking pictures of my notes, I would have a picture of the first page, I would have a picture of the second page, and a picture of the third page, and then you have to attach all 3 of those pictures, okay? So you have to go down and put add file every time, and then make sure you're adding the correct pictures and that you're not adding some other assignment. Make sure that you are not submitting the same picture 3 times, okay? If you're having trouble submitting, get a hold of me and I can walk you through submitting those. And then once you have these submitted, you are done for the day, for our class, and you will be counted as present. All right, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Bye.